Hello and welcome to Friday Night Ghost Stories. Let's get this show on the road with a little bit of intro here. That's enough of that. Hello, 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 and welcome to the party. I hope everyone is having a wonderful Friday evening. It's 9 o'clock, which is the witching hour for me in terms of storytelling. I have my candles ready to get started, and I have my refreshment ready to carry me through our session tonight. I see we have a bunch of folks here. Adam Crevorsier, good to see you, my friend. Theme Do, my brother, is here. Mike F. checking in from the middle of the country, the Arizona? No, I don't know where you are right now. Wherever you are, you're somewhere, not here. And I saw Stiggs is here too. Good to see you, my friend. Thank you for stopping in. I know you're a busy guy on Friday nights. But anyway, I think you guys will enjoy tonight's tales. And I'm going to get started with a little lighting of the candles, as we traditionally do here. Because you need candlelight to tell a ghost story. And I'm sure many of you heard that New Jersey was the victim of a earthquake today. And that was about 5 miles from my house, and I was in the midst of it. And we had another aftershock, which was almost as bad as the original earthquake at about 6 o'clock. The first, and we've had, I see 12 aftershocks. Now, I didn't feel all 12 of them, but I tell you what, it's scary to live through that stuff. Thankfully, thank God, there has not been any damage to my house or my, and no people have been injured. Thankfully, thank the Lord for that. But it was crazy, and so all the more reason to be thankful to be here and telling a story right now. Before I get started, I just want to say a shout out to Seton Hall University for winning the National Invitational Tournament. My alma mater, congratulations, Pirates. Should have been in the NCAA tournament, and you showed them. They snubbed you, and you went out and you won the NIT. Good for you. All right. So anyway, tonight we are going to talk about ghosts of the Revolutionary War, one of my favorite topics. And this one's close to home because it's specifically deals with Jockey Hollow, which is in Morristown, New Jersey. It's now a national park. And to fully understand why there would be ghosts here, you have to know a little bit about the history of the Revolutionary War. And that centers around the encampment at Jockey Hollow, which took place in the winter of 1779 to going into 1780. Now, in school, they teach everyone a lot about Valley Forge and how bad it was. Well, Jockey Hollow, the winter of 1779 and 1780, was by far the worst winter on record, much worse than Valley Forge. And it's because of the terrible winter and the terrible conditions that our patriot soldiers had to endure that it makes this area a prime ground for spirits because of all the suffering that went on there. And there are several stories that come out of this. And just to give you an idea of how bad the winter was. That winter, the Hudson River froze completely over to the point where people were riding, I guess, horses and carriages, sleighs on the Hudson River. That's never happened since then. But that winter, it was so cold that the actual Hudson River froze over. That winter, it went above freezing only one day. Only one day has been documented in that winter that the temperature actually rose above freezing. And throughout that winter, there were 28 snowstorms that hammered the Northeast, not to mention a blizzard, a week-long blizzard in January. So it was a monstrous winter. And in fact, historians call that time period a mini ice age. It was so bad. So consider the conditions when Washington takes his army into winter quarters at Jockey Hollow. And he really only intended to be there a few days. However, because of the strategic and defensive positions that it created, he had really little choice but to stay there. And he ends up staying there for almost 5 months because the winter was so bad. They couldn't do anything. They couldn't go anywhere. The British couldn't attack them, but also it was such bad conditions. So, hello, Paul. Good to see you. Bobo, good to see you, my friend. So it's easy to see why such trauma would come out of this, that spirits would still be restless in this area. And throughout that winter, I'm sorry, over 100 patriots lost their lives just in that encampment from freezing to death, starvation, and there was also an epidemic of smallpox that ravaged that camp. Now, there were 13,000 soldiers in total that went into that camp. Very few huts were there. Very few tents were available. Most of the soldiers had to fend for themselves to create their own shelters out of what they could find: birch, maple, oak trees that had fallen or they had chopped down. They had do their best to do this, to just make some type of shelter to survive. Of the huts that were there, the built existing huts, they were designed for 2 people, and there were at least 10 soldiers in each one of those huts. Now, those huts are still there. They've been rebuilt. They're not the original huts, obviously, but they have been rebuilt. Thank you, Theme. So thank you so much for that. That's really appreciated. I want to show you, if I can. This is just so you have a perception of what's going on here. That this is what the camps. Hold on, here you go. This right here is what it looks like now. These are the huts that have been rebuilt for reenactors to go there. And each summer, they usually have a reenactor event where a bunch of people get together and do an encampment to commemorate the original encampment. Hello, Gina. Good to see you, my friend. So you can see these are pretty small huts as they've been rebuilt. And they've been rebuilt to the specifications of what they know. And it's in these huts where the reenactors stay when they come. Now, those hundreds or so soldiers that perished for various reasons during that winter were all buried in one spot, and they call that spot Cemetery Rock. And this is why, because there's a boulder there. So what they basically did, because of the conditions were so bad and it was so hard to dig graves and such, they kind of created a mass grave of 100 soldiers, and the remains of them are still in that location. And this is what that area looks like. There is a monument there that tells you right here is a picture of it. And on here it states this is called Cemetery Rock, or yeah, Cemetery Rock. And here is this is dedicated to those that remains are beneath the ground here who gave their lives in service of the country to be. So I always say a prayer when I've been there a few times, and I always say a prayer of thanks for these brave men and women that, and there were a couple of women. You'll hear the story about one woman, but mostly men, obviously, but some women that gave their lives so that we can have our freedom. So to me, that moves me, and it's very important to me to recognize that as I go through this story, that these are, if they are spirits, are the spirits of patriots who made the ultimate sacrifice. All right, so a little bit more information about that. George Washington wrote Congress on several occasions during this time, pleading for them to send resources, to send some type of help for them, because they had literally nothing to eat. The soldiers were living on bark from trees, any type of horse food aside from hay, oats or whatever they had brought with them for food for the horses, was now being consumed by the soldiers because they had no choice. They had nothing else to eat. And even their soles of their shoes they were cooking the soles of their shoes and eating them, which ended up with a lot of them being barefoot because they ate their actual shoes or boots to stay alive. And some even say that they were eating a few dogs that were pets there, which is just a horrible type of situation there if you have to eat your pet in order to live through the winter. So just a terrible situation. And in fact, Washington, who hated to commandeer things from the public, had no choice to do that. He would send out raiding parties to local areas. He would try to target Tories, loyal people to the crown, that were, because New Jersey was evenly split between patriots and royalists that were fully in bed with Britain. They wanted Britain to win the war. They were who they were. They were loyal to the king. So he would send out parties of soldiers to commandeer food, commandeer resources from these loyalists, hopefully. And sometimes they even went into patriots. So, I mean, and Alexander Hamilton, who was there at the time with George Washington, even wrote that it was such a bad environment that the army hated the countryside because the countryside had forgotten them and not provided for them. And the countryside, meaning the people, began to hate the army because the army was oppressing them by taking their goods to survive. So it was just a terrible, terrible environment. And therefore, you could see why so much negative energy could result in spirits haunting this place. So let's get to that. Let's get to the actual tales of ghosts in this park. Now, Jockey Hollow is a pretty big place. It's I don't know exactly how many acres it is, but it's pretty big. If you've ever been there, you can see for the distance, and you'll see the park is what you see for the distance. And it's beautiful. It's a beautiful park, open land with some of these huts with the encampment area, and then the open area where surrounded by fencing. So I would highly recommend you visit it. It's a beautiful area to go. And there's also the place where George Washington actually had his headquarters that you can visit and such. So it's an interesting place to visit. But those 100 soldiers that were buried at Cemetery Boulder there, or Rock, seem to be and it makes logical sense, could be the source of this ghostly activity that's seen in the park from time to time. And the ghostly encounters have happened over many years. It's not like they've been in a certain period of time and stopped. They've been consistent over the years. You'll hear reports every now and then from mostly the in campers, the reenactors that go there and encamp, because those are the folks that are there during the night. No one else is there during the night. They actually live there, for that week when they do the encampment. But the most common sightings there are people swear they see groups of soldiers marching in lockstep through the wood, through the trees around the encampment. So basically, marching, drilling. And what they'll say will happen is they will see these soldiers and they look much like people, reenactors. But at the time they see them, they're either reenactors or in their camps, in their cabins, or there's not a reenactment going on. And in fact, they see them marching across this drilling field and will march towards the trees. And as soon as they hit the trees, they will vanish and disappear into thin air. And that is a consistent story that's been told over and over by eyewitnesses, that they have seen this specific activity. Now, that could be residual spirits reenacting things over time. Who knows? But there's never been any interaction between people in those spirits. Those spirits are just going about doing their thing as if it was 1779. So I would love to see that myself. I've never seen anything like that. I would be awestruck if I ever saw anything like that. But many hikers, visitors, and encampment members or reenactors have reported this, that they've seen this. Now, another thing that's often very common and jarring is between the cabins, and those cabins that I saw, you're all in one location. Reenactors have said that they've noticed and seen shadowy creatures darting back and forth between cabin and cabin late at night, and that their skin crawls every time they see this or encounter this, that these black figures will dart quickly from one area to the next, one cabin to the next, from the cabins to the trees and back. And whenever they shine a light on them, there's nothing there. So to me, there's been a lot of talk of shadow creatures or shadow figures, which could be the spirits of some of those dead soldiers trying to get shelter, as if it was the winter again of 1779 and 1780. Now, there's also a story that happened in about 2015. There was a reenactment group going on there, and it was both women and men, and they stayed the night, as they normally do. They stayed the nights, and it was one night and this was during the summer. And one night during the summer, one of the women got up to use the latrine in the middle of the night, 2 o'clock in the morning. Went out into the darkness to the the potty, the hole in the ground, whatever they have there. I don't know exactly what they had there for that, but was going there, did her business and was returning to her camp with her flashlight. And as she was returning slowly, she heard from her left side, she heard the sound of fife and drums. And if anyone has ever listened to an encampment or any type of Revolutionary War picture, you hear the fife and drums. That was how they marched. That's how they played music, etc. She heard this sound starting very faintly, and it got louder and louder and louder and louder, to the point that it sounded like there was a marching army going alongside of her as she was approaching her cabin, from the latrine to her cabin. And as she got to her cabin, she quickly turned to see what was there. And I don't know what that thumbs up thing was. Is that supposed to? I don't know where that came from. Anyway, That was interesting. There was the thumbs up thing. I don't know if that's someone liking it. I don't know what that was. Anyway, she turned and immediately the sound vanished. When she turned her attention to the left, to where the sound was emulating, it completely vanished as if nothing occurred. And she went and told her comrades that they what she encountered. They all came outside, woke them up, came outside, and it was dead silence, nothing. Now, the interesting part about this is that it couldn't have been anything like a trick or anything like that, because there were no fifes and drums in this encampment. There were no people there that were part of a band that would do that. Some encampments do have that, as they display their marching. And if you've ever been to Williamsburg, Virginia, you'll see that all the time. They'll have marching parade down with fife and drums, but there were none here that time. So where this came from, was it the figment of her imagination? But she swears that it was very loud, that it came as if it was standing right to her side, that she was marching alongside these spirits of the soldiers. Now, the next story is probably the creepiest story. And this one is the legend of the Patriot's widow. Now, many people have noticed, especially in the winter months. In fact, mostly the accounts have come in the winter months, that they've seen a figure, a white figure, carrying a lantern, walking along the trails, the hiking trails of Jockey Hollow. And this apparition is said to have been a young woman wearing a long white dress, colonial dressing, carrying a lantern, moaning and calling out, "Jeremiah, Jeremiah, where are you, Jeremiah?" Now, the story behind this is that Jeremiah was a local patriot who, when the encampment was happening in that brutal winter of 1779 to 1780, felt the calling to join the revolution, to join his fellow patriots, and set out. He was a local person, set out to join the encampment during one of those blizzards that I told you about at the beginning. And that before he went out, his wife argued with him. There were newlyweds, young people, begged him not to go. He would not, "Don't leave me, you won't come back. Don't leave me, you won't come back." But he swore he was going, and he went out in the middle of the night. He went off into the blizzard to join his fellow patriots at the encampment. Well, his wife wasn't going to sit for that, wasn't going to sit still for that. And in fact, got her lantern and went out after him into the blizzard to find him. And unfortunately, was never seen again, completely vanished in that blizzard. What became of her? No one knows. Most likely she was taken by the storm, killed, froze to death, who knows? But she never made it to the encampment and was never seen again by any of her neighbors or family or friends. And it's said that it's her spirit that is still out there looking for her husband to bring him back from harm's way. Now, the creepy part of this is that there have been several accounts of young men who have encountered the spirit and have said that the spirit was not simply just walking and doing her thing and calling out Jeremiah, but once the spirit caught glimpse of them, began to go towards them, and with an outreaching hand saying, "Jeremiah, Jeremiah." So in other words, this spirit was focused on them and going towards them. And one young man claims that he actually made contact with the widow, the patriot's widow, and that he felt her icy hands grabbing his jacket and pulling him. Now, the fear was that if she accomplished pulling him, that she would pull him back to the other side, pull him to the other world, thinking that he was Jeremiah. Now, this has happened a couple of times. There's a couple of stories at different time periods, and it's always a young man who would be about the age of the patriot who left his wife, who this spirit, instead of just doing her normal searching for Jeremiah, fixates on this modern human being and tries to pull him into her icy grasps to take him to the other side. So it's a warning to be warned, to be stay away from this ghost. Don't go near her, because no one knows what would happen if she would actually grasp and take someone with her. Who knows? So a bit creepy stuff there on that one. And then the final story is comes from an individual who lives outside of Jockey Hollow, just in the neighborhood, in a normal house on the edge of the park. And he has said many times that he has seen a dog chasing his cats around his house and his yard, and that the dog will chase these cats, and just when he's about to catch the cat, the dog will vanish. And it's said that this dog is the spirit of one of the dogs that unfortunately lost its life to be a meal to the Patriots during that terrible winter. But this homeowner swears that this happens routinely, that his cats will get chased by this spirit dog, and that once the contact is made, the dog vanishes. So it's definitely not a stray dog. It's definitely not a neighbor's dog. It's a spiritual dog that's looking to chase after these cats, this poor thing that lost its life to the winter and became a meal, I assume, to the Patriots. So those are the stories of Jockey Hollow. We have the Patriots themselves drilling. You have the dark, shadowy creatures or people that are darting in and out. You have the invisible ghost who band of fife and drum, and we have the Patriots' widow, and then finally we have the phantom dog that wanders about and chases after cats in the neighborhood. So those are your rather historical stories, and it all goes back, like I said, it all goes back to the fact that so many people, so many men died there, unfortunately, and were buried haphazardly because the winter wouldn't allow them to have proper burials, and seemed to be trapped there and seemed to manifest every now and then. So I think anytime you go there, if you do go there, just keep that in mind, that these are restless spirits for a reason. They're not, you know, um, and whether they're malevolent or not, I don't know. I mean, the widow sounds a little creepy, like, I mean, you might get the raw end of the stick there. But I wonder if she's just lost and looking for her love. And that could be just the unfortunate circumstances of the situation. But yeah, that's how it goes in Jockey Hollow in Morristown, New Jersey. Not very far from my house right now. So that's my story for tonight, folks, and I hope you enjoyed it. Anyone have any questions or any comments or anything like that? I'd love to hear them. Team Do stayed up for this. I really appreciate that. Way to go, my friend. So Mike F says, my cat would get up and room from room to the other end of the house every time our ghost came into the room. Interesting, Mike F. Very interesting. and Mike F actually sent me a video in his front door, which I thought was pretty creepy. And I don't know if you've heard about orbs. and it's a theory that orbs are spirits. They manifest themselves in the shape of an orb. And this was definitely an orb, slowly going across his Ring doorbell. It was not a particle. It was not a moth or anything like that. It was definitely an orb, and pretty unexplainable, if you ask me. So I wonder, Mike, if you're going to encounter anything else around that house. Who knows? But yeah, so that's what's going on. The cat would never go into the basement. Now, so Mike F., where was that house where the cat wouldn't go in? Which house was that? Like, what part of the country, I should say? What part of the country was that in? Because I know you've moved around a lot. Thank you, Bobo. I appreciate that. I don't think it's your present house, right? Like I said, I've never encountered a spirit myself, but I would love to. Oh, in Maine. Okay, yeah, Maine. Very, very interesting. Very, very interesting. New England is very famous for its spiritual stories, spiritual tales. So wouldn't surprise me at all. But I'd love to encounter that myself. So yeah, so that's my stories for this evening. And I think I said hello to everyone that has come in. If I'm just checking right now, I think I have. Yeah, I've said hello to everyone. So thank you, each and every one of you, for joining. I appreciate it. Hope this was worth it for you guys. Thank you, Gina. I appreciate that compliment. Yeah, I mean, who knows? Could have become a ghost myself with this earthquake thing. I don't know. I tell you, that was scary. I mean, New Jersey, is New Jersey turning into California now? What's going on here? Pretty shocking stuff. And we talked about that on the news show this afternoon. That what I experienced, and now we have the eclipse coming. That's going to be a tale for Thindo and Todd Father to take on over there in Buffalo, because that's the epicenter of that. Hi, Carmela. Good to see you. You missed my story. Go back and watch it if you're interested. You missed my story, unless you were here and you're just not commenting. But yeah, the Marstown stories are ghosts are done. Yeah, so I don't know. I don't know if anyone else is as interested as I am in colonial history and the Revolutionary War history, but there's a wealth of tales and stories there. Not all, ghosts. They don't have to be ghost stories. They're just amazing, amazing tales of our origin as a country, and it's fascinating to me. Oh yeah, Carmel. Yeah, trying to get back in a routine here. Trying to little by little get back into a routine. Yeah, Gina, it was pretty bad. I mean, it was a shock. Um, it was kind of like a freight train going past your front door. That was the sound, as if there was a freight train right outside your front door. And the house was shaking, and the vibrations, you could feel the vibrations like coming up from the ground to the first floor to the second floor. I was on the second floor, and you felt it kind of like go through you and into the roof, like as if it was making its way through. Like the vibration started and made its way up, like kind of like a chimney. It was interesting, but it was scary. I didn't know what to do really. I thought so many things. I originally, I did figure out that or suspect that it was an earthquake. But at the very beginning, when it first happened, I was like screaming, "What is going on? What's happening?" I didn't know if a tree had hit the house, if a truck had run into the house. It was something. It was kind of a you know something like that takes you off guard. So I eventually got pretty quickly to the fact that it's an earthquake, but at first that wasn't my first thought. I was like, something else, was going on here. And I quickly got under an arch because I didn't know what else to do. I had just gotten out of the shower and I wasn't dressed and I couldn't run outside. I yelled to my wife to run outside and I just kind of stood under the arch in my bedroom of the doorway arch until it went away, until it subsided. No, there wasn't any warning at all. No, there was no warning. None. Mm-mm. It just happened. And we've had 12 aftershocks since that. The original earthquake was at 10, 35, 38, something like that. We've had 12 aftershocks since then. And there was one at 6 o'clock, which was almost as bad as the original earthquake. The original earthquake was 4.8. And then at 6 o'clock, there was an aftershock that was registered 4.0. So that one was much shorter, much, much shorter. Like it was over very quickly. But at that time, I was sitting watching TV and kind of dozing off. I had just got done with working for the day and I sat down in front of the television just to relax a little bit. And I felt the rumbling again. And I said, oh no, quickly jumped up. And my wife and I ran outside. And as soon as we got outside, it ended. Like it was instantly. It was very quick. Hi, Cinnamon Girl. Good to see you, my friend. Yeah, I mean, I think there's tsunami warnings from earthquakes, but I don't think an earthquake it's kind of hard. It's kind of hard to warn of an earthquake. Yeah, the whole house was shaking, man. It was something. It was something. Yeah. And I had a friend that was in the earthquake in California, the Los Angeles one, um, in the early 90s, I think it was. And and that was bad. I mean, and I don't remember what that was on the Richter scale, but this one was only 4.8, but it was big for us, man. Man, that was I don't want to be in any larger ones than that. And they say that 5.0 or above is where you get structural damage. I didn't see any structural damage, hopefully. Ours was close, it was 4.8, but we didn't go over that hump to structural damage. A couple of paintings or pictures on the wall were tilted. That's about it. In my house, nothing fell, nothing crashed or broke, thankfully. Oh yeah, no alarm clock needed, right? That was a wake up call. I don't know, Cinnamon Girl. I don't know. I'm 5 miles away from where this happened, so maybe I am. I don't know, but it was a shocker, you know, because you don't think about it. You don't think about it at all here, being in New Jersey. You wouldn't think about that at all. Now, I remember about 7 or 8 years ago, there was that earthquake in Virginia or DC that I felt in Newark. I was in Newark, New Jersey, and I was actually giving a presentation on a stage at the time, and the huge like jumbotron screen behind me started swaying. I mean, that must have been much more powerful because we felt it here in New Jersey, and it was from Virginia. I've never felt one before here, Carmela. Like I've never felt one that occurred here. Like I said, I felt the one from Virginia, but I never felt one that occurred in New Jersey. But I'm told that they happen all the time. They're just very minor, so that you don't notice them. And this one was big enough to shake your house. 2017 in New York, Bobo says. Hmm. And I don't remember that one. Is that the is did that did that happen in New York, or was it felt in New York? Because the Virginia one was felt here, or DC, Virginia, wherever it was. That was the where it actually occurred, but it was felt all the way up the East Coast. Yeah, crazy is right. Crazy stuff is right. But yeah, that was today's highlight of today. That was the activity for today. Crazy stuff. So I don't know. I hope everyone is okay. I haven't heard of anyone getting harmed, which is awesome. That no one was harmed by it, but it was just scary. You feel very out of control. You feel like, what can you do if you can't rely on the earth to be there for you as a steady place to stand? You feel very out of control. Oh, it was felt, Bobo. Yeah, and then maybe that's the same one I'm talking about, the Virginia one, because that was pretty powerful, and I felt it in Newark. So, but we can do without it. Let California have the earthquakes. We don't need these. Oh, hurricane season. Oh, it starts this early, huh, Carmela? That starts pretty darn early, doesn't it? Yeah, when does it start? It starts like June 1st or something like that. That's crazy. So basically, the entire summer and fall is hurricane season in Florida. Yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know how you guys live in Florida. I could never do it. The weather is just I could never deal with the weather. I can't. I can't deal with heat and humidity like that. I can no way I can deal with that. And I can't deal with the lack of mountains and hills. Everything's flat. I need mountains and hills and trees. Not palm trees, regular trees. So, swampland, yes, exactly. So yeah, though I got to think of I got to find a new story. I want to try to do these every Friday if I can. Yeah, it's harder than you would think to actually, because I just can't tell anything. I have to be interested in the story to tell it. So it takes me a while to find them. And I hope that I find things that are interesting. They're interesting to me, and I hope they're interesting to you guys, because I don't want to waste anyone's time. Uh, but we'll see. Yeah, I mean that's a good question about the whole how animals react. I've heard that animals react. You know, who was asking about Cinnamon Girl? Were you asking, or someone was asking about a warning? The closest thing to an earthquake warning, I think, is animals. I think like animals have like a sense for that before it happens. Horses, I know specifically do. I don't, dogs might too. I don't know, but I've heard of that animals tipping off their owners that an earthquake was about to happen because they are in tune to it quicker than we are. So, um, I don't have a dog or anything, so I don't like I don't have anything that could warn me. But Boba, Woodlawn Cemetery. Many famous people there. They actually do stories there, as you do here. Okay. Woodlawn. All right, Woodlawn. Where is that, Woodlawn? Is that in California or here, or in the East Coast? It's interesting. A lot of these stories that I find, it takes a lot of effort to find because they're not really common, which it's strange to me. Like a lot of the, in the Bronx. Okay, yeah, I'll look into that. Let me write that down. Woodlawn Cemetery. Um, yeah, like for example, Gina said she doesn't hear these local stories, and that doesn't surprise me because they're not really told, and that's a shame. You know, it's part of our history. It's really part of our cultural history, and they should be told. These stories should be told. They should be told from generation to generation. I don't know why they're not, and it's so difficult for me to find. People think the internet is the end all. It's not easy to find stuff on the internet. It really isn't anymore. Might have been when it was first created, but it's not anymore. There's so much advertisements and who pays to have their site come up when you search as opposed to others. It's very difficult to find things on the internet. A lot more difficult than I ever thought it was, especially when I'm looking for stuff like this, which are word of mouth stories. Someone had to codify it, put it in writing someplace and get it out there. Hi, Cheech. How are you? Good to see you. Thank you for stopping in. I appreciate that. Almost past your bedtime? Yeah, no, it's past my bedtime too. This is the one night that I stay up a little bit longer and tell the story. All right, so Mike F., when you were in Oklahoma, when I'm in Oklahoma, I watch the cattle and horses. They move away from storms before they happen. They will gather in the farthest corner of the property away from the incoming storms. Interesting, yeah. And I would think they would do the same thing with an earthquake. Like I don't know how they would react. I don't know how you can't really get away from an earthquake, but I've heard that they do sense this and before we do. So I don't know if anyone who experienced the earthquake had a dog. You know what I mean? Or in this area. I mean, there had to be. There's tons of people with dogs, but I'm wondering if anyone in the area around me had an experience where their dog kind of warned them or acted strangely or anything like that before it happened. I haven't heard anything as of yet, but I'm going to ask around and see if anybody encountered that because that's interesting to me. So anyway, it's about what time is it? It's almost 10 o'clock. It's too late to be telling stories. The witching hour is almost over. So I'm going to end this and I'm going to thank each and every one of you for stopping by, spending some time with me, listening, and hopefully enjoying the story. And I will see you next time. Remember, please hit the like button and build the guild. As always, I say, God bless and thank you for watching.